do the sex.
Today's Talk Sex with Annette topic is queer dating. How does it look different than you might see it in the heterosexual world? It is Pride Month, and y'all know I'm queer, and I've been dating. It's been interesting, and I am very excited today to drill down into what dating looks like as a queer woman. In my case, I'm queer, bi-pan. I pretty much am attracted to everybody. But a lot of the time, dating is seen through the lens of heteronormative society. And so when those of us who might discover we are queer later in life especially, and we want to start meeting people, it's like there is no guidebook. And it is not like it was when we were just dating the opposite sex. And the struggle is real. I think that's what you'll hear across the board. Well, it doesn't have to be as difficult anymore. You are not alone. I have an expert here, if you will, on dating as a queer person. Today, I am joined by the incredible Dr. Frankie Bashan, a licensed clinical psychologist, board-certified sex therapist, and the powerhouse behind Little Gay Book and Little Black Book Matchmaking. She spent over 2 decades helping people find love, build intimacy, and get real about their desires. We are going to break down what dating as a queer person looks like, some of the common challenges, and how to navigate them and possibly, hopefully, find love. But before we dive in, I want to remind you that I am over on OnlyFans, and there I'm sharing my sex and intimacy how-tos, demonstrations, and audio-guided self-pleasure meditations, all designed to help you start having better sex and intimacy with someone else or yourself starting tonight. You can also find me over on Substack doing the same, and so much more. And you can find me in both places with my handle at Talk Sex with Annette. But lucky you, if you scroll down to the description in this episode, you're going to find links to everywhere you could possibly want to find me there. But for now, let's dive into dating as a queer person. Frankie, can you tell my listeners just a little bit more about you?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank you, Annette, for having me on.
Mm-hmm.
Excited to be here. More about me. I'm originally from Manhattan. So that I think I have a very, very much an East Coast vibe about me that I haven't lost. I've been in California now for, 25 years. I moved out here to get my doctorate in clinical psychology to Berkeley. I'm a mom. I've got twins, boy-girl twins that are 20 years old. Can't believe that. I don't feel much older than 28 myself. So how in the world, you know what I mean? Did I have kids that are now 20? And I love my career. I feel so blessed. And I'm happy to talk all about it with you today.
All right, guys. So you're going to stay to the end because, well, if you're straight, you're just going to want to know what we're doing over here on the other side of dating because it's fun and sexy. If you are queer, and I know there are so many of you out there who are, we're going to help you figure out how to do this shit because I'm still at a loss. So by the end of this podcast, you're going to know exactly what you need to do to find love. All right, maybe that's an overstatement, but you're going to be a little bit closer to having some tips on how to navigate getting out there and dating and finding the partner you want to find. So let's dive in. Are you ready, Frankie? Let's talk but first of all, cheers. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
And here's to finding love someday. Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm going to put you in the hot seat. I recently, it was a quickie, started dating a woman. I would call, and I feel like this is derogatory, and you can tell me. I referred to her as a baby bi, meaning a woman, she was a grown woman, who had kind of recently discovered her queerness and was diving into navigating that. And I met her and I was like, sometimes baby queers can be messy, messy, messy. And it was instantly messy. But I was also like, she's real cute, pretty funny. And dating women is hard. Dating as a queer woman is hard. Dating as not a lesbian woman is hard. And I know I also run retreats for bi and queer women, and we all talk about the same difficulty. How do you know when someone, if you are looking at dating someone who is the same sex as you, same gender as you, how do you know if they're queer? How do you address them and flirt with them? How do you keep them from going into the friend zone? You want
That's like
to,
one of the most, yeah, that's like one of the most popular questions. But it's tough, right? Because if you're attracted to more feminine women, you can't tell if they're queer. So I would say just be direct and just be curious. Just ask.
are you
Ask.
queer? I mean,
Yeah. Are you part of
look
the
at,
queer? Are you part of the queer community?
right,
I
right.
don't want to make assumptions. I'm just curious. That's it.
Because I know that I look about as straight as can be, and
Yeah.
that is definitely a stigma I struggle with when I go into queer spaces. They're like, "Oh, are you here as a bachelorette party or whatever?" You know.
I mean, the good news is you have tats. That already helps.
Just
Oh,
gonna
all
get
right.
more and more and
Yeah.
more.
That gives it, they're wondering, right? You look, maybe, because people also ask, how do I signify? What symbols can I wear? How can I, is there something can I change the way that I walk? They'll ask us things like that, because they want to be identifiable to the right people. So yeah, I think it's tough, but there are definitely tattoos are helpful. And I just think in general, right now, it's tough dating, period, whether you're straight or gay. But there are clear challenges that apply to our community that they continue to be challenges. And one is just sheer numbers. We don't have the same volume of singles, LGBTQ plus singles. And then also on top of that, people have very specific um, types like of women or gay men or whatever that they're attracted to, whether it like where it falls on the masculinity, femininity spectrum, gender expression. So people can be very specific. So I use a scale as a matchmaker. I'll just say on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being high femme, 5 being androgynous, 1 being kind of stone butch, very, very masculine, like one step before transgender. Where would you say you would place yourself? Give me a range. And what about the person you're attracted to? Where would they fall? Give me a range. And then explain the nuances. So if somebody's like 5 to 7, Frankie, okay, well, what does that mean to you? Five's androgynous. 7 to me is kind of like, kind of more feminine, but maybe more sporty. They're not going to be the high femme that's a 10 that, has their nails done all the time and that takes maybe an hour in front of the mirror to apply makeup, kind of like a J Lo or a Beyonce. So we get nitty gritty about it,
Mhm.
Um, and that's really different than I think heterosexual matchmakers, what they experience. It's like cis hetero men, they want a hot woman to date,
Yeah.
right? But, lesbian women are like, I want a woman who is sporty but feminine, or, can be androgynous but wears men's underwear.
Oh,
Doesn't wear, right? Doesn't wear
don't. Oh
lacy
my
bra and
God.
underwear.
Okay. All right.
Or they can be androgynous, but they can't carry around a purse. You see this like there are certain specific artifacts or, ways of being or presenting that can be a turn on or a turn off,
Yeah, that
So
is
that makes it harder.
so specific. I didn't even realize. So I'm getting insight just learning from this, and it's interesting from my perspective. I like such a wide range of. I'm attracted to a wide range of women. I don't know that I could nail down one type. But I run into the problem with myself because I think generally I present as a pretty high femme. Uh,
You're
I'm
pretty
not,
feminine.
yeah, I'm not good at sports. I will try to go out there and hit a softball, but I'll hate it. I'll do it for you. I'll be a sporty if you want me to. But I think along with that also comes in this assumption that I'm more submissive or that I'm I'm going to be this softer personality. And
Ye- No, we can't make those assumptions. I know
right.
butches that are bottoms.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important to not assume. And actually, you want to have a conversation about it to understand if you're dating somebody, you want to be curious and ask.
Right.
Because if you like a dominant butch, you'll want to know before you find yourself in bed with that person. And you're like, whoa, we're
Yeah.
definitely a mismatch.
There are a
Yeah.
lot of butches that are little softies out there. They're so soft
Yes.
and sweet.
Yes.
And there is this assumption that, oh, butch means dominant. There's a lot of, and I'm going to
Totally.
say this, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong. I do think there's also a lot of misogyny that carries over into especially the queer femme dynamic. The idea of what roles are, of what looks are, and what should lie beneath them, right? And
Yep.
so I think a lot of queer women, we end up in this place of feeling at odds. Not only are we at odds with our own sexuality and trying to figure it out, but then like with our own presentation, I love looking how I do. I do spend a good amount of time in front of the mirror in the morning, and my self worship altar is what I call it these days. But then sometimes that feels in conflict with then the person that shows up. And I can see the confusion in people who are dating me. And they're like,
Mhm.
oh, this isn't what the package is not giving me what I thought I was getting into, right?
I think that's why it's important to communicate. Like I'll use myself as an example. I'm really feminine, but I have a lot of masculine energy and I can
Mm-hmm.
be very dominant.
Mm-hmm.
So it sort of just depends. Sometimes it depends on the day. Some days I feel more feminine than others. Sometimes I'll just I'll put on heels and a really fitted dress. And other days I'm wearing like combat boots and jean shorts and a tank top, like a wife beater. And so there are a lot of people make assumptions and most of us humans don't fit into a perfect box. That's variability, there's a range, but we're taught that it should be black and white. And I think we're wired that way too. So I think we need to be more curious and not be afraid to ask questions because the truth is that when people want to learn about you, they're curious about you, it often feels good.
Yeah.
If as long as there's that feeling of safety, right? And that's another thing that's different in dating in the LGBTQ plus community is that many people, especially those that are coming out later in life, I wonder what your thoughts are on this because we're seeing more and more of that. It's it Safety is really important, like feeling like they're going to come into it with more guardedness and fear of like the unknown or walking into a first date, meeting somebody on a dating app. It's probably a little different for a straight person versus a gay person, so that's off the bat something to consider.
Yeah. As I was saying at the beginning of this, I launched a nonprofit called By Women Powered that primarily served by women. It's now being expanded to serve queer identifying women, meaning that they're attracted to a variety of genders, pan women. And a large number of these women or femme identifying people are coming out at an older age. And I'm talking mid 30s to 40s and beyond.
Mhm.
And one thing I want to say, and I feel like I re-experienced recently in a big way, and I would love to hear your take on this because it's going to also feed into something else that's happening in the LGBT community right now. Is I think that when women realize that they're queer later in life, it's usually coming out of a bad relationship with a man, a cis man. And it's instantly like, I'm only going to date women. That's the last man, even though I'm maybe not a lesbian, or maybe I think I'm a lesbian because this sucked so much. And they're like, this is going to be so much better. Dating women is going to be so much better and so much easier. And in my experience, and in my friends, like largely in my community's experience, I think the thing that we're all afraid to say, but I think is important to address, is that it is in fact not easier. And there are things that dating women, you don't have to worry about that you do dating men. And it's like, I just don't feel worried for my safety when I go out on a date with a woman like I do with a man. A man is much more likely to overpower me and harm me, right? We know the risk factor goes up there and physical safety. But I would say this when it comes to emotional safety and how we all treat each other, do not think that you're going to go into dating women and they're going to be any more emotionally safe or treating you better unless they've done their work just like men, right?
In fact, they have more emotional challenges, I think, because there's more trauma. 1 in 3 women, I think that statistic, I haven't looked recently, it might have changed, have been sexually assaulted. That right there will tell you that if somebody that you're considering dating hasn't done the work, any internal work, right? There's just a higher likelihood of interpersonal challenges, attachment challenges, communication challenges, worthiness, shame. I can go on and on. So yes, it is more. That's one reason why it's more challenging because there's more trauma amongst,
Thank you.
female born. Yeah.
Thank you for saying that because I wish we would talk about this more openly because then what happens is you get women who are coming out of traumatic relationships with men and diving into, without stopping and doing the work and healing themselves, healing their nervous system, and then just
Yes.
tumbling into another relationship with a woman who is maybe also in trauma. And then it's just, a lot of pain is created. Also, because I would say this, something that I'm having to work on with myself is I think I expect more from women. Like when a guy shits on me, I'm like, a guy shat on me. Wow, what a surprise, right?
Yeah.
But when a woman does, it can really feel, God, it feels extra wounding because I'm like, oh, you're supposed to be my community. And I'm not saying it's fair to either gender, and also let's acknowledge genders in between. But that's happened. I've had some really bad experiences dating
Yeah.
women, and I've felt shocked by it because, of course, what we see in our social feed and in media is, well, women treat
Right.
women so much better.
Not real. Yeah. Yeah. So then you have this false expectation that sets you up for disappointment.
Yeah.
Then, not to mention, right, hormones, just pure, like, if you're perimenopausal, you're premenopausal, whatever it is, like, we're dealing with cycles and
Periods.
periods. So
I've just
that,
dealt with that, man.
right?
Yeah, and I think what I realized, a year and a half ago, I came out of a really bad relationship that left me, a total mess, emotionally dysregulated, some real trauma that took place. And I really spent a lot of time finding what regulation it felt like to be emotionally regulated. And I found this beautiful bliss there. So when I finally was like, I'm going to open myself to dating again, I'm always like, when I meet people, I'm like, I'm at my baseline. Now, how are they making me feel? Right? Are they pulling me off it constantly? Right? And I think that like is something important in relationship with other women who might have trauma, like this relationship I just got into. I was like I was like pulled out of my regulation and pulled out, and I kept kind of getting myself back and like talking to her and like, is this going to be a
Mhm.
constant thing? Is this what we're going to do if we date? And it was definitely going to be that. And I use it as a measure for anybody I'm dating. But I just
Mhm.
think that there was this part of me that just felt like, oh, you know, of course this is going to be great because this is another woman who's also shared traumatic experiences, and she's going to be gentle with my feelings. She's going to know I'm also like in this newly regulated place and care. And
Yeah.
that doesn't always happen. And I
Yeah.
and I think women need to not go into dating other women, especially newbies or recently coming out bees. Don't think that dating a woman is an answer to all of your problems.
Agreed. Well said. Yeah. Annette, I agree with you. I think what it comes down to is that most of us have had trauma to varying degrees. And at this point in life, if you're in your, 30s plus, I think now is the time to start really looking at some of your stuff. You're noticing patterns of behavior. You're noticing that you have blind spots. You're noticing that certain behaviors might trigger your nervous system to get escalated or deregulated. Learning tools and skills. It's so essential to have a healthy, just healthy ongoing relationships. And it's not just in romantic relationships. Any kind of interpersonal relationship improves if you do your own work.
Right.
It's so important. Yeah.
And so this kind of brings up to mind one of the challenges I think sometimes for also women dating women. There's the joke around the U-Haul situation where women meet each other, they have this date, and then they're instantly like future planning together. First of all, I will say in my experience, one of the challenges I have encountered dating women is sort of that. Like I'm on the first date and they're already talking about, do you want to have a blended family someday? And I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to figure out if I even want a second date. Um, why do you think? First of all, do you agree that does tend to be a, a generalization for a reason? And I also think it may be tied to women tend to be a little bit more anxious in relationships, and we experience anxiety when we meet someone and we start to have those sparks and we think, oh, that anxious feeling is love. Like that's fucking love. Instead of feeling like waiting and experience what being regulated with someone who's kind to you. That's like love. This beautiful, calm, safe feeling is now like what I desire and seek for, and I've been experiencing with someone else. And but do you? So it got me wondering. Do you think that's at the root of that U-Haul experience?
So, what a great question. So, basically, first of all, it happens in the heterosexual world too, where people can move really fast.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, I do think the U-Haul stereotype, there's some truth to it, especially amongst women, female, born, I want to say cis females that are born that way, right? So the reason is because we're nurturers. We're wired to quickly really connect and nurture and take care of base and camp, right? And so you want to figure that out quickly. So that's why they're asking these questions about the future so early on. The other thing is you're dealing with biochemical changes. Oxytocin, a hormone that makes us feel like we want to be close and connected when there's that chemistry. Serotonin, norepinephrine, neurotransmitters that make us feel euphoric when we have that attraction chemistry piece on board. So your prefrontal cortex gets totally disabled when all of those chemicals are flowing. So your judgment is impaired, and you're ready to just keep leaning into what feels amazing. And when you're away from this person, you start to feel really anxious because oxytocin makes you feel like you need to be close together in close proximity. So there's the U-Haul effect.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. So, what would dating advice be for a woman who finds herself? You go on a first date, you guys kiss, and all those sparks happen, and suddenly it's like, this is it. This is it.
Slow your roll. Slow down. Notice what you're feeling. What is it like being in the presence of this person? You're noticing all of this excitement, the butterflies in your stomach. You feel a little nauseous. You're wanting to spend every moment with them. It's Friday. You're on your first date and you're already talking about seeing them tomorrow morning on Saturday. And then on Saturday, you're hanging out with them and you want to hang out with them on just slow down. Create some space so that you can both breathe and you leave each other at the height. You don't want to stay and exhaust that, right? It's how you put the fire out. The excitement goes out if you just lean into that and make poor choices, use poor judgment. You want to override that and control yourself, even though you're feeling all that intensity and you feel like you're falling in love. You got to recognize it's a chemical reaction. It's not love.
Mm.
What you can celebrate is that, wow, I'm attracted to this person. My body's alive and I want to keep getting to know this person. And I'm going to be the adult that's driving my system right now. And I'm going to say, you know what? It's Friday. I would love to see you again. Let's get together next week. push it out and just sit with those feelings. Observe what it feels like somatically in your body and what your mind is telling you. Doesn't mean you have to act on it.
Right. Because also love is something that comes from getting to know someone and seeing the kind of person they are and going, oh, you're a beautiful person. You're kind to me. You know, over time, we've done these things and you've treated me with respect and you've made me feel secure. And you know what I mean? That's what love is true love is born out of.
And it takes time. So you want to hang in there through limerence, right? 6 to 8 months. During that period, you have a lot of those chemicals flowing. As time goes on, they taper off. But we're also in this phase of like peacock effect. We are presenting ourselves as best as we can. We're managing our less flattering parts of our personality, kind of our more rough edges. We all have them. And you can only hide that or pretend for so long. So you want to be in the relationship long enough to be able to see our less flattering sides and then to determine, can I handle it? Okay, now I see that this person will stonewall me for 24 hours when I show that I have some emotion that's negative. I bring up a difficult topic.
Yeah.
How do I feel about that? How are they reacting to the fact that I'm noticing this, and are they willing to can they self-reflect? Are they willing to take some accountability? Like, what are we dealing with here? Is this something that I could see long term?
Mm-hmm.
Because behavioral change, we can change, but it takes work, a lot of effort, and you can't change anybody. They have to want it for themselves. And that's
Right.
where we make a mistake time and again. We think we can change people. If we love them unconditionally, their behavior is somehow going to change. That's a misnomer, misconception.
Right. And if you're choosing to get into a relationship with someone, that means you're choosing to be in relationship with them as they are in this moment
Yes.
without the agreement that anything will change. And so that's why you've got to look for like the little things that you see. Like, for instance, a great one is you have a conflict and they leave you like hanging in the middle of
Yeah.
because they
You're
can't cope.
abandoned.
They abandon you. Like, I'm telling you, the first time they abandon you, if it's early on, and well, maybe if ever, that is not something that takes a short time for someone to stop doing, right? Learning to
Well, they get
stick it out.
hijacked.
Right.
They get so triggered, their nervous system gets completely dysregulated and they're overloaded and they can't pull themselves back together enough to even just say, I'm overloaded, overwhelmed. Let's come back to this in 2 hours. They
Right.
can't. They just get hijacked.
Yeah.
They got work to do. So you got to ask yourself, can I handle this? And it depends on what you have experienced in your life and how much work you've done. If you're a
Mm.
securely attached person, that may not really dysregulate you. You may be like, you know what? I see what's happening here and I feel grounded still. And let's see, this doesn't, if it doesn't dysregulate you, you might be willing to continue to be curious. It really is so individual.
Mm.
There's not a right or wrong. It's really
Hmm.
about checking in with your system and seeing what feels good to you.
Yeah. That's a hard no for me, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
I mean,
nope. I'm like,
I
but I
know.
think you're right. Like for me, I think for me, it's like for the first time in my life, I know what regulation feels like, and I love it so much that I'm just like, and I'm the best partner I can be from this place. And obviously little dips and being, but I know the minute that I'm in a connection with someone that's swinging me all over the
Yes.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Annette, this comes from your own experiences in relationship, like life experience. You realize, wow, I know what it's like to be in relationship with someone where my nervous system is calm.
Mm.
And you recognize the value. So you're not willing to tolerate anything less than that
Mm-mm.
now. But you got to have the experiences. We got to be out there tumbling and grappling and
Mm.
experience this stuff to know what works for us and what doesn't, you
Right.
know?
So the message here is just, dating women, just like dating men and people of any gender, you're going to be tumbling. You're going to have to understand that it's going to be difficult in other ways. And I know that if you are newly out, it can be rough to go out and experience some of that with women. And then suddenly you're like, is it me? Is it because something's wrong with me? Am I not queer enough? Or am I doing queer the wrong way? Or do I need to shave half my head to fix it because then I'll look more queer? I mean, these are things I hear women say all of the time, right? How do I be more queer so I do it right? And then I have this experience dating women that I've heard about, right?
I want to just go back to another example of what it kind of can be tough in the, we're talking about lesbians right now. What's tough is also, I think, people who come out later in life or just in general, realizing that, wait a minute, queer women don't take such good care of themselves. And it might be offensive to some people. This comes up. For example, like a client would say to me, I'm attracted to really feminine women that don't appear gay and that take really good care of themselves. Maybe they're like doing Botox and they, do the things, they color their hair and they, they're really into fitness. Why am I not finding that? Why does it feel like that's a unicorn in the LGBTQ community, plus community? Because it is. That's a fact.
The L word lied to us. The L word lied.
Yes. Okay. They're more about body acceptance, being natural. So you're going to see more of that. Just less hair dyeing, less keratin, less Botox, all of that, right? More curves.
I love that you say that because, all right, I'm going to share a little secret, folks. Maybe you'll get a kick out of it. Maybe you won't. Being someone that dates all genders and being in open relationships for quite a bit of time, meaning I'd be dating more than one person at a time, oftentimes a man and a woman or people of different genders. One of the struggles I have personally found is around grooming down there. Guys really like it like next to no hair, maybe a little something, little strip. Queer women, I mean, they won't trust you if you don't have a full bush sometimes, right?
Many of us have lasered it off. We're shit out of luck.
You know where I'm going with this. So in my last relationship that I was in, and the last time I, was really truly like in a monogamous place was with this dude who didn't like any hair. And finally I was like, and also I'm going to be clear, I prefer less to none, at least around my labia, because I get more sensation and it just feels good. But I was like, okay, if you don't like it, then you can pay to have it because I'm getting bumps. You can pay for the laser job. He did. He's gone now. I go out on a date with a woman and I'm like, oh, fuck. I just have, and I find myself actually nervous about that part of it. You're going to know clearly, like, that, I don't know. So, and then also on the other hand, I'm like, hey, you could like trim a little down here. I'm like weed whacking to find your clit.
Or you're swallowing like a mouthful of hair. It's no fun.
It is no fun. So that is true.
Yes. So that's another fact. Just grooming, just more natural, hairy legs, hairy armpits. Not everyone. We're not going to generalize, but yeah, there's just more of a natural approach. And I think they don't, going back to misogyny and the patriarchy, I think there's wanting to backlash against that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of, heterosexual women feel pressure to really maintain their youthful bodies and faces. And it's expensive and it's invasive. And I think that many women in the queer community are kind of against that idea.
Right. Yeah. And it's hard when you're like, I enjoy all of that stuff for myself. And then like I've had like moments where I'm like, am I going to have to like undo it to be accepted in the queer community? And then I was finally like, fuck no.
You got to be you.
me. Yeah.
Just be you and there will be women that appreciate you, and there will be plenty of women too that feel threatened by it and may question, well, how, Annette, really, how gay are you? How bi are you? This comes up a lot too. It's like, are you gonna just get bored with me and decide you're, bored with my plumbing and then jump ship and go find a guy because you want a dick?
Can we talk
And
about the big thing? So before we sign out, we have to talk about the thing that's going on in the sapphic community right now with two very big, I would say big sapphic celebrities, one being JoJo Siwa and the other being Fletcher. And Fletcher is a hot topic right now because she really became sort of a musical sound for a lot of the queer women in the LGBTQ community. She recently disappeared from everything social media for 6 months, only to come out in, I think, the last week and drop a song announcing that she had never said she was a lesbian, but definitely had a lot of songs around that, but that she apparently 6 months ago, it sounds like, fell in love with a man, kissed a man, and she's been in hiding because she's been afraid of what will happen to her whole community. JoJo
sure.
Siwa, of course, is a much younger, I think she's only like in her early 20s, who also was sort of a queer icon, though not well treated or well liked, who also met a man. And there's just so much angry discourse around this in the sapphic and queer community. And I guess and people saying this was not the time for Fletcher to come out. And from my perspective as a bi woman, I'm like, for me, it almost seems perfect because I think in the queer community, we need to start talking about what queer looks like. And sometimes queer looks like a woman with a man who has no home base anymore because
Exactly. Yes. I love that you said that because you know what? It's not static. It can be fluid. And you can be queer and be in a heterosexual relationship, and you could be a lesbian, you could identify as a lesbian for a certain number of years and then find yourself in a relationship with a cis hetero guy and still be queer.
mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to remember that. And like people need to be true to themselves. And especially if they're a public figure, they can't live in the spotlight and lie about who they are. They gotta be real. And we need to respect them for doing that in the best way that they can, I think. Living in hiding is toxic. It's just and it's inauthentic.
And how were these two women, well, especially Fletcher, supposed to make it through Pride? Basically, what people were saying is you needed to stay in the closet as a queer woman who had met a man through Pride and wait to let us know till after because this is our month, but it's her month too, right? And
Totally.
and she is in the closet. She's afraid of you,
Oh my
her
gosh.
community. And I'm
Yes.
like, this is the time we need to be having those conversations because if you
Yes.
look at queer, pan women, bi women, non-lesbian identifying women, we are at a higher rate of sexual assault,
Yes.
suicide, all of these things, depression,
Yes.
because of this exact dynamic. We have no home.
Totally. So and it perpetuates the problem. I think we need to do our best to be visible and real, authentic, and honest, and be vulnerable in doing that. Like, look, this is who I am. You're my fans, and I want to be honest with you. I'm still queer. Just because I'm in a heterosexual relationship doesn't mean my queerness went away.
Mm,
Like, we need to model that it's okay. It's okay to be sexually fluid.
it
There's
is.
nothing wrong with it. Yeah. So it's just there needs to be some learning, education, and we can't hide. It just perpetuates it. Yeah.
And Pride Month is the best time for that. Another comment that is very common about Fletcher coming out and sharing, I kissed a boy and I liked it, is on her appearance because now they're saying, well, and now she's wearing flowy clothes and looking more feminine. And what is that all about? And I'm like, also, you can look like that and be queer. This is a
Yes.
great lesson And we should be able
Yes.
to be fluid. Like you said, sometimes you're wearing your combat boots and you're like, tight tank top, and sometimes you're high femme. And I feel so much stress about what I wear and look like when I go out to queer events because of that very thing. And, what they're saying is, oh, Fletcher needs to look like this, but now she's even looking like what? Straight feminine? What is that even?
Right, right, right. And then they criticize you and judge you because of it. Or or the gay community feels betrayed, like we just lost one, right?
Right.
That person was on our team and now, so it's just like we have to shift that way of thinking and recognize that this is not it's not coming from a place of scarcity and coming from a place of abundance. This is somebody that's part of our community and they're happy in a relationship. Let's celebrate them. There's a queer person that can be celebrated that demonstrates that they can be in relationship with somebody that's the same gender and also of the opposite gender. Great.
Right. And also I think as part of the dating scenario, can you speak to the idea you mentioned before of a bi woman or a queer woman getting sick of certain plumbing and looking for another human? Because as a bi woman, I'm like, A, gross. B, that's not how it works. If I choose to date someone of a different gender, it's not about the plumbing, it's about how I'm being treated. Like,
It's
if
about,
you
yeah,
want
it
to keep me, treat me well.
absolutely has nothing. It's an excuse when somebody says, well, they left me because, I don't have the right plumbing. That's an excuse. That is an opportunity for us to slow down and really look at what happened. And oftentimes it's emotional, it's behavioral. There's a disconnect in the relationship. It wasn't working. They didn't leave because of your genitalia. You can offer pleasure. If you like penetration, plenty of dildos, plenty, you can finger. I mean, I can go on and on. It's not about plumbing. So let's just be real with ourselves.
It's
Yeah.
not about plumbing.
No.
Be nice. No, I think that, dating as a queer person, but specifically as a queer woman, lesbian woman, it's complicated and it's difficult. And we are dealing, when we're dealing with women, especially women who are not heterosexual, and not to dismiss the trauma heterosexual women also have had, but this population, we are all, now you've got this population of people who have been traumatized in lots of different ways, trying to come together and create beautiful relationships. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge the complexities and difficulty with that instead of just promoting it as, oh, women are better, they'll treat you better. That's not helping anybody.
No, no, I agree with you. And this conversation is so important. I think we need to keep having these conversations. And no matter how scary it is to be real and step into that, honesty, radical honesty, it's the way we've got to go because the needle has to keep moving in the right direction.
That's right. Now, before we wrap up, can you give my listeners just a couple of tips as they head into Pride looking for their next big queer love?
Oh my gosh, don't be afraid to take risks. Get out there, be bold. If you see somebody that catches your eye, go over, introduce yourself, and you just say, I just noticed you, and I had to come over and introduce myself. I have no idea if you're queer. I have no idea if you're single. My name's Frankie. Just wanted to say hi. Strike up a conversation. We need it now more than ever. In-person interactions. Definitely that. Also, during Pride Month, plan to do 3 events, queer events. Get out there in person. We have events. My company offers events all over the country, virtual and in person, singles events.
Oh, perfect.
Get out there. Yeah.
So let them know where to find you. Now's their chance.
Yeah, littlegaybook.com. We serve the LGBTQ plus community. We have events, singles events. We have matchmaking. We have coaching programs. We have, a plethora, so many different ways that we can support you in having, in finding amazing partners and then maintaining those relationships.
I love it. So check her out, guys. This is Pride Month. Love is abundant. Abundance. That's what we're talking about and thinking about here. More and more people are coming out as bi, queer, pan every day. And there's a lot of opportunity out there to find love. So go show your pride. And just remember, it's not all easy. It's not all unicorns and rainbows, but a lot of it is. So thank you so much for joining me for this conversation today.
Thank you, Annette.
All right. And to my listeners, until next time, I'll see you in the locker room. Cheers.